Hey everyone, Thursday, December 3rd. Our learning target today is that I can describe how the natural environment affected the places early humans chose to live. Okay, so we're continuing on learning about the ice age and climate change and all these factors that really influenced and impacted the people of the time, the animals, the different species, where they ended up, how they traveled. Um, and that's what we're really diving into. It's all still prehistory, okay? So it's all still subjective and it's theories. We got to remember that as we're learning, okay? Your question of the day you should have answered. So today was, what is a land bridge? How is it used for migration? Looking forward to reading your answers there. Remember your question and reflection notebook, that notebook that you fill out, it is due today. Okay, so please submit it. Yes, you can go back and do days that you missed. Yes, you can fill it in, but make sure it is turned in. Push the turn in button so that I know you turned it in. So Mrs. DeAngelis knows you turned it in. We're not going to go through and look at the missing people to see if you guys did it. No, you have to turn it in. Okay. And just another reminder, as we can see in this upcoming due dates and reminders box, the semester ends Friday, which is tomorrow. Now, your question and reflection for this week will not be on the trimester that is ending. It will be on next trimester. Just want to clarify that for you guys. Your final grade for social studies is the Plymouth Scholastic and Google Form, that activity from last week. That is your final grade for social studies. Please make sure everything is in. Now, we are going to dive into our digital textbook today, and you can find that in our Chapter 2 topic folder in Google Classroom, okay? And I can show you where that is right here. So if I go to my Google Classroom, if I go to classwork and Chapter 2 migration, takes me there. Okay. Textbook, you're looking for textbook chapter 2. For some of your classes, it's all the way at the bottom, so go ahead and scroll down. So it looks like I moved it up. So this is what we are looking for today. And we're going to take you right through the chapter, okay? So I'm scrolling down to page 35, environmental effects on first humans, okay? All right, guys, so we're diving into section 3, environmental effects on first humans, okay? And we're just going to take this chapter right through. It's pretty short. It's only 3 pages. And we're going to dive in. So, during the prehistoric era, which remember is prehistory, nothing is written down. No one has seen it or recorded anything. But there was multiple climate changes. And there are evidences all over the world. The Grand Canyon, for example, evidence of massive climate change. And one type of the change was called the Ice Age, all right, which is a period of extreme cold. So it's a lot of snow, a lot of precipitation, ice, cold temperatures, okay? The sun was not warming the earth potentially as much as it should. There was things in the atmosphere, okay? So scientists believe that there were actually 5 great ice ages potentially, and there was one, the most recent one, and that's the one where humans were around for. And remember, these are all theories because it was prehistory. We don't have any evidence. So this is subjective knowledge. We aren't sure, but it's a hypothesis. Okay. There is evidence for some sort of something, right? And that is what we're studying today, this ice age. So during this particular ice age, the northern polar ice cap moved so far south that most of North America was covered by ice, including all of Michigan even. So let's think about this for a second. Remember yesterday I posted those screenshots of the atlas that you just worked on, and it had a whole map. And remember the top of the map was white and those continents at the top, and that was North America and Europe, right? So that is that North Pole we're talking about. It's so far south that it's even covering Michigan, right? And the reasons they believe that is because you can see in rocks and you can tell things have been found that suggest that there was a massive like ice age or a flood, and things were compiled on each other, and you can find that throughout Canada and throughout the upper part of Europe. So yeah, about 30% of the Earth was covered in ice. All right. Before we dive into this, though, I'm going to start with a little introduction, and I think you'll enjoy this. But one of my favorite movies of all time. Luckily, there's 4 of them, so it's a great movie clip.
Well, why not call it the Big Chill or the Nippy Era? I'm just saying, how do we know it's the night page? Because of all the ice. Well, things just got a little chillier. Come on, kids, let's go. The traffic's moving. No buts. You can play extinction later.
Okay. Sal, where's Eddie? He said something about being on the verge of an evolutionary breakthrough. Really? Some breakthrough. You're coming the wrong way.
Hooray! Hey! Do the world a favor! Move your issues off the road! If my trunk was that small, I wouldn't draw attention to myself, pal. But give me a break. We've been waddling all day. Oh, go ahead. Follow the crowd. It'll be quieter when you're gone. Come on. He wants to raise the death ladder.
So this is the Great Migration, right? All the animals are migrating.
Hey, I'm up. Hey, rise and shine, everybody. Huh? Zach? Marshall? Bertie? Uncle Fungus? Where is everybody? Come on, guys. We're gonna miss the migration. They left without me. They do this every year. Why? Doesn't anyone love me? Isn't there anyone who cares about Sid the Sloth? All right, I'll just go by myself. Oh. Sick. Hey, wide body, curve it next time. Oh, jeez. Oh, yuck. Oh.
Flood's real, all right. And it's coming fast. Look around. You're in a bowl. Bowl's gonna fill up. Ain't no way out. Unless you can make it to the end of the valley. There's a boat. It can save you.
I don't see anything.
But y'all better hurry. Ground's melting. Walls tumbling, rocks crumbling. Survive that, and you'll be racing the water. Because in 3 days' time, it's gonna hit the geyser fields. Boom! There is some good news, though. The more of you die, the better I eat. I didn't say it was good news for you.
Ooh, he must have been a real pleasure to have in class.
The ice is melting.
All right, you heard the scary vulture. Let's move out.
Manny, you really think there's a boat?
I don't know, but in a few days, this place is going to be a mile underwater. If there's any hope, it's that way.
And sorry about that language in there. But one of the reasons I like Ice Age to the meltdown is I think it's very interesting that the animals all had to get to a boat to avoid the flood, right? And the melting of the Ice Age. Because in the story of Noah, the floods come and he builds a boat and all the animals get on the boat. And I mean, this is a Disney movie, so maybe they kind of followed that same storyline. Anyways, so now let's jump back. So we're back in the textbook now, and where I was here, about 30% of the Earth was covered in ice. So naturally, hunting and gathering was difficult during the ice ages. The first people had to adapt to their surroundings, and these hunters and gatherers, they had very different environmental conditions to deal with, different than we even know today. It's very difficult for us to understand what the Earth was like back then with all of these different environmental changes. It wasn't like the Earth right now where things just grow really well, and we have different technological advances that help us all the time. And we can see this even with Native Americans. When we studied Plymouth last week, and um, any peoples that were native to the area, you can see why they valued the land so much and they valued animals. They didn't waste anything because it was so valuable for survival. They didn't just make fur, skin coats and shoes and stuff just for fun because there was nothing else to wear. No, they made those because otherwise they died because they needed to stay warm, right? And that's super important for us to remember, okay? Um, Actually, they're highly advanced people too. I mean, if you sat down today and tried to skin a hide, I mean, it would be impossible for you. Okay, so they were just very advanced in different ways. The first people adapted to their surroundings, and the cold climates would have had them using these different hides to stay warm, and hunting animals would have been imperative for them to live and get meat and the proteins that you need to survive. Nowadays, we talk about we need protein in our bodies. Are you malfeasant in certain vitamins? Well, they were probably pretty healthy back then because they ate a lot of proteins. They ate vegetables. They ate all natural things. They probably did not need doctors like we need doctors today because they were so healthy. They didn't have they didn't have any sugars. They didn't have these artificial flavorings in foods that we eat on a regular basis every day. So now we need to go to the dentist because our teeth are rotting. The Native Americans and these people back then, they didn't have those same problems because they were so natural and taking things off the land. They had other things too, but that's just something that we need to remember when we're studying these people, okay? We're gonna watch this video now, the interactive 2.14. And it gives us another idea and some more theories on the Ice Age.
Hi, I'm Emerald Robinson. In this What Is video, we're going to take a closer look at ice ages. In 1840, Swiss scientist Louis Agassiz noticed glaciers. Huge rivers of ice created by snowfall occur throughout northern Europe. As glaciers move, they transport rocks and scour the ground beneath them, leaving evidence of their passing. Agassiz theorized glaciers were the remnants of a huge glacial ice field that once covered much of the continent. Geologic evidence of massive glacial activity also occurs in North America. Agassiz had discovered evidence of the most recent major ice age, a period of time when glacial ice fields extended across large sections of the planet. Geologists have evidence of 5 major ice ages, more properly called glacial ages. The earliest well-established glacial age, called the Huronian, formed between 2.4 to 2.1 billion years ago, during the early Proterozoic eon. The last glacial age, and the only one to occur since humans appeared, began 1.5 million years ago and receded 15,000 years ago. During that time, the Laurentide ice field covered all of Canada and extended as far south as Indiana. Glacial ages have enormous effects on the planet's weather patterns, animals, and plant life. Animals that cannot adapt to the colder environments die out. Similarly, animals that adapt to cold environments may not survive the change when glaciers recede. The Milankovitch theory by astronomer Milutin Milankovitch suggests variation in the Earth's orbit account for glacial ages. Instead of orbiting the sun in a constant pattern, the Earth wobbles. Over millions of years, this wobbling affects global temperatures. As glacial ice fields spread, snow and ice reflect sunlight that would otherwise warm the Earth, causing further drops in cold temperatures. Low levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere can also contribute to a glacial age. As you can see, Earth's climate goes through drastic changes when looking at it over thousands and millions of years.
So that's a nice little video recapping what we just covered. And one thing that I did want to take note of too is this ice age and the massive accumulation of weather and the snow and having it be so cold. It's also evidence for flooding, okay? And scientists and historians across all beliefs in all areas can agree that there is evidence of a lot of flooding. And we can see this in the Grand Canyon. You can see that the rock is layered in a way that means it was compacted in a very short amount of time by a very, very large natural disaster. So we have a few other videos here we're going to watch on talking about how this massive flooding would have impacted then the ice age and the extreme temperatures of this time. So the last lady we learned from was Miss Emerald, and now we're going to learn from Mr. Buddy Davis. So here we go.
Wrangell in the background. It's an active volcano up here in Alaska. Now, during the worldwide flood, and a long time after the flood, there would have been lots and lots of volcanoes. As the volcanoes erupted, sending hot steam and ash high into the atmosphere, it would have created dark clouds, and the clouds would have reflected a lot of the sunlight back into space. That made for cooler summers, and it would make for milder winters. With all the volcanic activity in the oceans, it's believed that the Arctic Ocean could have been as warm as 80 degrees for a short period of time. Trust me on this one. I have been there. And it's not 80 degrees now. It's ice water. The warm ocean water would have caused a lot of evaporation. The evaporation from the warmer oceans condensed into clouds, and the precipitation fell as snow. Over time, the Earth recovered from the effects of the global flood, and that's why we're not living in an ice age today. We can be glad of that. To get an ice age, you need cool summers. To get an ice age, you need mild winters. To get an ice age, you need tons of snow, and the worldwide flood is the key to unlock the ice age mystery.
The ice on Greenland and Antarctica is in places miles deep and hundreds of miles wide. In the present, however, all but the edges of these ice sheets are cold deserts. Not enough snow and ice falls there to build up the depth of ice that we find today, even if long periods of time were available. The flood of the Bible may provide an answer. First of all, flood rocks contain thick piles of lava and huge volumes of volcanic ash. Meteorologist Mike Ord has suggested that this might have led to the Ice Age.
There was a lot of warm water added to the pre-flood oceans from the crust, and also a lot of lava flows and volcanism that heat the waters.
Evidence in fossils suggests that the oceans were warmed up in the course of the flood.
The average temperature of the ocean is 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, after the flood, it could have been an average of about 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And you could have taken a swim in the Arctic Ocean right after the flood. It was so warm. But then it's going to start cooling down, and that cooling is mainly by evaporation. So the key here is that for that warm water, you evaporate so much more water vapor in the air.
As the oceans cooled after the flood, heavy snow began to fall. Computer simulations that begin with warm oceans show snow falling far inland over cool continents. Ice sheets build up thousands of feet thick, where we see evidence for such ice today. This ice built up in only a few centuries of time. The whole process was sped up by volcanic ash, cooling the Earth after the flood.
Because of the instability of the Earth after the flood, there'd be a lot of volcanism. Aerosols are tiny particles about a micron in diameter, and they'll float up there in the stratosphere for several years, and they reflect sunlight back to space. So you have a cooling mechanism. The ice is going to build up, and then finally it's going to come to a point where it's going to peak. That's glacial maximum.
Once the oceans cooled enough, the evaporation slowed, the snows stopped, and the ice began to melt. Calculations suggest that the buildup, movement, and melting of ice did not require many thousands of years as is traditionally taught. From a warm world at the end of the flood to the melting of the ice took only centuries of time.
And then I see evidence of the one ice age and the short, rapid ice age that melts catastrophically. This is what I see based on science.
Present climate is not the key to understanding what produced thick piles of ice in Greenland and Antarctica. It looks like the Bible had the key all along, the Great Flood in the days of Noah.
Great. Now, let's move on to talking about the people themselves, okay? How do I get this off? All right. So there was a lot of migration happening between the animals and the humans, and these temperatures and the snow and the ice would have determined those migration patterns. So an example is the time when the sea level was low due to the ice buildup in the north. Many of the islands were connected to continents and land bridges, and you guys answered that in your question of the day. So these land bridges connected islands to major continents, and that's kind of how people moved, and we have talked about that. So let's look at this map quickly, right down here. So this is just one small example, but as you can see, there's a lot of islands. We have the Philippines here. Okay, we have Borneo, which is this one right here with a B on it. Sumatra is here, Java, we have New Guinea, and then obviously Australia. It's a bigger one. These were all connected at one point. That's how animals and people traveled from one to the other, okay? These land bridges. And we're gonna look a little closer now at specifically Borneo, because Borneo, I might be saying incorrectly, Jasmine and Justine Dizan can correct me on this, Borneo. They had tigers and gorillas. And it's really cool to look at that. So let me show you right now. I'll show you some pictures of that. So here's a closer look at this particular island. As you can see, Philippines is to the north here. The Indonesian islands are to the south. We move up here. We have other landforms. And how come tigers are just living on this island, right? And they are endangered, and there's less of them now than they believe that there was before. But I mean, look at this beautiful landscape. And tigers, I mean, magnificent creatures. And this is where they migrate to. All right, and Australia had even warmer climate, so they have other animals and species of trees that kind of adapt to these warmer climates. So it's just very interesting that on this island there's tigers, and then there's gorillas too. Let's look at another example. Sulawesi. Sulawesi, it's another island, right? It's east of Borneo, as you can see right here in the circle. And this island was very interesting. Let's jump back to the textbook. So the textbook says Sulawesi has many strange animals. Nearly 2/3 of its mammals are found nowhere else in the world. This is because Sulawesi was not connected to either Asia or Australia. So as the water levels rose and it wasn't connected anymore to these main lands, these animals stayed there, right? And they lived there and they prospered there. Many birds, however, were also seen in Asia and Australia, which makes sense. Birds can fly, right? They can move around. Crossing a bit of ocean is no big deal for the birds, or even humans if it's not that far. Australia is dry and far from other land, so as a result, and we touched on this, many of its plants are different from the other continents. All the trees are a eucalyptus family of tree. I would love to go to Australia someday. I think it would be very cool, very eye-opening. And the warmer climates during the ice ages in Australia resulted in a different environment and different creatures living there. People lived differently there. They didn't have to make fur clothing to stay warm. They, as you can see in this picture, this is a picture of a group of people that live in a warmer climate. Obviously, they don't need fur. And they would have hunted animals that suited the warmer climate. Their shelters would have been made of different materials. So it's something to consider when we talk about migration and we think about the different areas of the world. It's not all like Michigan, right? We have to think outside of our Michigan, although we do have 4 seasons, which makes it a little easier. But for example, look at this picture right here. You think that that was a structure that was made in a warm climate or a cold climate? Well, probably cold because it looks like there's mammoth tusks and things that would keep you very, very warm and safe inside. There's one other thing we're going to look at, and these are the animals that you can find in Sulawesi. And pay attention to this because this will help you with your reflection of the day. Your reflection today is to post a picture, not right in the text box. You're instead going to post a picture, an image where the reflection text box is, of an endangered species or a rare species that you can find on one of these islands that's not found anywhere else. So just something unique. Look at this picture. Look at these. The anoa. Very cool. The Babirusa wild boar. I mean, it's got tusks coming out the top of its nose. Look at these. The Malayo bird. I've never seen anything like that. The Cuscus bear. Kind of looks like a koala and panda maybe put together, but I've never seen a bear like that. And look at this one. The black macaque. Very cool. Look at this, it's Mort. King Julian the Tarsius. I think that's the last one. So this is just fascinating things, and it all goes back to the migration period, right? One last video here. It's 1.5 minutes long. Oh, there's my head. Get exit all that. 1.5 minutes long, and let's look at it right now.
People came to North America during the last ice age, which was around 14,000 years ago. The sea level was lower then, so there was land between Alaska and Siberia. It is referred to as a land bridge. If you look at a map now, that area is covered with water. As time has gone on, ice has melted and filled in that area with water. This area is now called the Bering Strait. Because this land bridge is covered by the ocean now, there is no proof that people actually moved between Alaska and Siberia. There are no artifacts or evidence, but instead, this land bridge idea is a theory. The people that lived 14,000 years ago and might have crossed that land bridge are called Paleo-Indians. Paleo-Indians were probably following herds of animals for food. They hunted mammoths and other large animals using stone-tipped spears. Later, they learned high-tech tricks like how to use bows and arrows and how to store food in baskets. When their food ran out, they had to move on. This is how scientists have come up with the theory that Paleo-Indians crossed the land bridge.
All right, and we're going to wrap up now with what you're doing the rest of the class period. So I want to make this loud and clear. This is not homework, okay? This reading guide that you begin today, it is not homework. If you get it done, great. Just hold on to it. It is your study guide for way down the road for your test in a few weeks, okay? Like I said already in the beginning of this video, the trimester ends tomorrow. We are not grading anything. Nothing else is due for this trimester. So this reading guide is not homework, okay? Do it for the rest of your time today until noon, and then we'll pick it up next week, okay? But based off everything we covered now in 2.2 with Mrs. Dana Jealous on Tuesday, and then 2.3 today, you are going to start your reading guide. And let me just jump to it real quick to give you an idea of what it looks like. It is not very long, and it follows the textbook. So you will need to, at this point, get the textbook out yourself. Put your name on it. You can use red ink, please. And the big ideas are at the top here. Does geography determine destiny? And which has a greater impact, the environment on people or people on the environment? All right, and I have thoughts on that, and I've shared that a little bit today. We've taught you the best we can. We've given you a lot of different theories and ideas for prehistory, how the environment changed the migration patterns. So it's something for you to think about. Does environment affect the people? What has the greater impact? The environment on the people and what the people do? Or do people affect the environment? It's a good question. So you're going to open up section 2, answer 1 through 5 here. Section 3, you are just following the textbook paragraph and filling in the blanks, okay? Should be pretty self-explanatory. For this first one, one type of change is considered the blank, which is a period of extreme blank. And I believe, I'll give this one to you, I believe this would be, everyone says I type too fast, so I'm trying to slow it down. Ice Age, which is a period of extreme cold, okay? So that's what you're doing there. Pretty self-explanatory. Go through this paragraph, and then you have questions at the bottom, 1 through 4, okay? So you can answer those. At the end of the hour, make sure you do your reflection and you turn it in. Remember, it is not going to be graded until next week, okay? Let's jump back here. Your reflection is, like I said before, post a picture from Google Images as your reflection. What is an example of a rare or endangered species, an animal or a plant, that is found on one of the islands in Indonesia, okay? And that's that area we studied today when we talked about land bridges and how people migrated and how animals migrated. All right, thank you very much for paying attention so well. You guys are doing an awesome job, virtual learning. Keep sending me emails. Keep Mrs. Dana Jealous in touch with what you are doing as far as missing assignments, okay? And we are here to help you. Awesome.